in Ukraine, with potentially hundreds of thousands of people dying, we must demand the immediate negotiation of a peaceful end to the war in Ukraine, or we will end up in World War III, and there will be nothing left of our planet, all because stupid people didn't have a clue. They didn't have a clue. They don't understand. They really don't understand. I rebuilt our military. I rebuilt our nuclear power. They don't understand what they're dealing with, the power of nuclear. They have no idea what they're doing. I withdrew from the disastrous Iran nuclear deal in Ukraine, with potentially hundreds of thousands of people dying.
I don't know if the audio was too low on that.
Peaceful end to the war in Ukraine.
The audio. What was the audio too low? Did we hear what Orange Man Bad had to say? Good afternoon, everybody. It's 12:01. This is not a question of. Let's just we'll deal with one thing at a time. I just tweeted out. I mean, it's going to be the essence of the intro here. Everybody is out there on Twitter, claiming, arguing Putin is the equivalent of Hitler. Putin is Hitler 2.0, Hitler 2022. Let's just, this is a conflict where, much like, say, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, you ask both sides and the other side is going to be the incarnation of evil. But let's just operate on the basis. We accept the analogy. Putin is, in essence, the same as Hitler. He has global domination, ethnic cleansing, all of those aspirations. We'll operate on that basis for the sake of discussion. There's one material difference between Putin and Hitler, which is so determinate, it makes the comparison juvenile in its militaristic policy simplicity. They may have, I'll accept, in essence, Putin, for the purposes of argument, is spiritually, ideologically the same as Hitler. You know what the major difference is? Hitler didn't have nuclear weapons. Now, that doesn't make, if we're operating on this analogy, Putin's aspirations legitimate. It doesn't mean he should get away with it if that's the way the discussion is going. But it does mean that if you don't change your idealistic, oversimplified, militaristic policy response to that minor difference, Hitler did not have weapons susceptible of ending the world, whereas Putin does. If that doesn't change your approach, and you go back to appeasement policies, you go back to Chamberlain policies, you go back to you can't negotiate with fascist dictators because they will only ask for more. If that doesn't change your approach to viewing this conflict, you're probably wrong. You're probably part of a problem, which is if Putin is Hitler, there's no negotiation possible. A military victory is the only possible outcome. Well, if Putin is Hitler, he's Hitler plus nukes. And so that is a distinction. It's an all-out military response against a person as crazy, globally domineering as Hitler. Well, all-out conflict isn't really going to work when they have nuclear weapons as well. And so we're sitting in a world now, it's Monday, trying to not remain optimistic. And by the way, Chris, I'm not saying that this is true of Putin. I'm just, it simplifies all arguments when you concede or agree to agree on the premise of the opponent. Putin is Hitler. Okay, look, I don't think, I think there's more material distinctions. I think if Putin were genocidal, if Putin had ideas of global domination, this conflict with Ukraine, the war in Ukraine would look much different. I'm not an expert, so I wouldn't tout my opinion as though it carries any more weight than that. I think there's other differences. The idea is, I'll agree to the premise. Okay, you're right. Let's, for the sake of discussion, Putin is Hitler. Okay, well, there's a big difference. Putin has nuclear weapons. Hitler didn't. If that doesn't change how you view this conflict and a resolution to this conflict, you might be one of the people saying, I hope when things go down that I'm not in the line of fire. And now it's Monday morning. trying not to be a Debbie Downer, a Viva Valium. Try to start the week off not with optimism, because optimism is not always an asset. I say realism is the asset. You don't want to get down, but we lived through a weekend where, if anybody's on Twitter, you literally saw people cheering. Was it a suicide bomber who blew up the bridge joining Crimea to Russia? You had blue check marks, and lots of them, celebrating the fact that I think it was a suicide bomber or someone in a truck that blew up, damaged a portion of the bridge adjoining what some people view to be an annexed Crimea, what other people view to be a Crimea that voted for independence or voted to join Russia. You have people cheering on. I've been waiting for this day. It's like a dream. People died, by the way. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how many or whom they were, but people died. An attack on critical infrastructure, people celebrating. There were videos of people in bars cheering, blue check marks saying, I've been dreaming of this day forever. Oh, if you think Putin is Hitler, what do you think Hitler would do if you just bombed a bridge adjoining, let's go by the analogies, but they're not analogous, adjoining an annexed land to Nazi Germany? What do you think Hitler would do? Would Hitler say, you got me, war's over, here, let's stop now? What do you think a nuclear armed Hitler would do? Oh, you got me. You got the bridge. But, apparently the bridge has been repaired in any event, but you got me. What do you think a Hitler would do? It reminds me of that scene from Fight Club where, Meatloaf and all the others, they're running around blowing things up. And then Meatloaf gets, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen the movie, but something bad happens to Meatloaf. And Tyler Durden says, what did you think was going to happen? You're running around blowing stuff up. What did you think was going to happen? And so over the weekend, celebrating an attack on critical infrastructure, and now conflict being what it is, it's not a one-game chess board where only one person gets to move at a time. Now we have Putin, Russia, launching missiles, hitting Kiev, and killing innocent people. And people are screaming in horror now, as they should be. And then you get Donald Trump saying, we need to back off and negotiate something of a peace treaty, a settlement here. You get Elon Musk saying, this is what I would envision. I'm not a historian, but seems logical. Land-based. No, people want to go to war, and people want to continue with this war. And you see how it doesn't escalate. It degenerates. It's, you blew up my bridge, I'm bombing your cities. You bombed my cities, now I'm bombing your cities. This is how, the conflict in Northern Ireland, Southern Ireland. Brothers killing brothers, and then brothers avenging the deaths of their brothers. And it's an endless spiral. We've seen it in Israel, Palestinian conflict. We're seeing it now. And it's not a question of cooler heads not prevailing. You got people who are just hoping, banking on the fact that they're not going to be in the crosshairs, saying, go, go, go. Can't negotiate with Hitler, even if Hitler has nuclear weapons, where all-out conflict would probably end the world as we know it. It's grown men acting like children, grown men sending other people's children to the slaughter. The people egging on Ukraine to not accept any form of a negotiated settlement with Russia. Well, they're pretty shielded. They're pretty far away, or they're politicians in their bunkers. They're politicians in their safe spots. And now the people saying this is getting serious. Putin, Hitler, as you might think he is, big difference. And maybe we need to figure out a way to solve this without, oh no, but Hitler wouldn't use nuclear weapons. Hitler, if Putin is Hitler and Putin has nuclear weapons, he wouldn't use them. He's rational. He knows that would be the end of him. Oh. And so over the weekend, people literally celebrating an attack on critical infrastructure as though in a war there would be no retaliatory response. Anyway, it's tough not to get down. You have to have faith and not the blind faith. You have to have the faith, but do the work as well and push people in the right direction. Cooler heads will prevail. And at some point, this endless spiral, because it goes one of two ways. It either spirals well out of control, or, the conflict continues, but the West's interest in it becomes less and less. It wanes over time. And so you end up having this conflict years down the line, but the West is no longer interested in it. And yet innocent people caught in the crosshairs are still suffering. So that's it. That's the intro. Curmudgeon. Let's just see. Have we been demonetized? Apparently, when you say Hitler too many times on YouTube, we're still green. I genuinely don't care about it. Just want to see what the rules are for this week. So that's that. Just people should appreciate that. If you think Putin is Hitler, okay, he's Hitler plus nukes. That should change the way you deal with him. You may not like it, and life is not fair, and sometimes the only good solution is the one that leaves everybody unhappy. I would argue to say, more often than not, the only good solution is the one that leaves everyone relatively equally unhappy. And for the love of goodness, that avoids more innocent bloodshed, because the wars are fought by men and women in boardrooms, and it's suffered by boys and girls on the street. Chris Wyans, Crimea Merch Bridge blown, Starlink down, Crimea Bridge fixed, West celebrates attack, Russia responds, SBU H course, I think that's the Ukrainian, goes boom, introducing General Surovikin. I don't know who that is. I'll have to look that up afterwards. So that's the intro rant. Not a question of getting angry on a Monday morning. It is a question of the expression. Where's it from? I said it was from the Bible because I'm an idiot, but the Lord loves a working man. Goodness is its own reward. Okay, parentheses. Back in my old office when I used to be a lawyer, a practicing lawyer in Quebec, and I looked like one too. We had basically the entire floor, but not the entire floor. There was like one small office, and we had the rest of the floor. And I go into the bathroom, and there is a mess in the toilet, a big stinky mess, not mine. And I would admit it if it's mine. That's not the purpose of the story. It wasn't mine, and it's stinking up the bathroom. It's sitting in the toilet. Whoever did it didn't flush before they left. It was no one in my office, but we have guests and there's someone else on the floor. So I flush, and I actually cleaned it up a little bit so that the next person who came in wouldn't have to deal with it. As I was leaving the restroom, someone else came in. And I remember thinking to myself, and it's the stupidest thought that's still with me like a decade later, had I not cleaned up that poop in the toilet, leaving that toilet room, the person coming in who I didn't know would have thought I made the mess and I was the ass for not cleaning it up. And so, no, so the goodness is its own reward in that I flushed it. It was someone else's disgusting poop. But there were only two outcomes there. It's not mine. I'm leaving it there. And then when I leave, the person thinks it was me wrongly, or goodness is its own reward. So I think that was after kids. I think after you have kids, you no longer view poo with the same disdain. Vomit, however, someone tell me what the fear of vomit is, because I have a fear of vomit. Okay, that's the intro. Standard disclaimers: no medical advice, no election fortification advice, no legal advice, despite what some of you might want out there. Those YouTube super chats, YouTube takes 30%. We're simultaneously streaming on Rumble. Rumble has the equivalent called Rumble Rants. They take 20%. You know the shtick. If you want to support the channel, those are the good ways. One thing I have not been doing is properly promoting my own merch. Robert Barnes and we have merch. And I keep forgetting. Like, I saw salty crackers. It's like, holy crap, what a good idea. Why don't I, let people know about the merch that Viva Fry has? Go to vivafry.com if you want to buy a shirt. Politics Ruins Everything is a good one. Hinged, Fringed, whatever. It's all there. Here, I'll put this in the link. It should be there somewhere. Yeah, whatever. This is another way to support us. You can go to Locals. We are nearly at 100,000 members in that community. It's an unpaid member, so you can be a member, just follow. You get a bunch of stuff. There's exclusive stuff for supporters, but you don't have to support. Ton of content that's readily available for everybody, every member of the community. It's a great community. I'm going to close this down. Viva Fry, bumper stickers, and whatnot. Oh, I remember me back then. Oh, okay, so that's it. No legal advice. What else was there? And we're going to go to Rumble in about 15 minutes. Goodness is its own reward. It has to be. Nothing else rewards it. Author Marcia Hins. Did you see this, Viva? Nature lover, I still think it's from the Bible. And the Lord loves a working man. Keep working and you'll fix your problem. So don't despair, because despair makes for idle hands. Idle hands are the tools of the devil. Wow, this is getting biblical. Don't despair. Continue to work in a manner that could be effective. I want to bring this up because I want to have the discussion. So if Hitler had nukes, we say, okay, for peace, you can keep Europe, but cut down the rate of genocide to 100,000 Jews a year. I think not. Some things just can't be accepted. You've made a lot of statements there. And it's actually virtually impossible to respond to them. If Hitler had nukes and the risk was that there would be the end of everyone, you would potentially try to negotiate certain things differently. So too much cram-packed in here and too much judgmental rhetoric. But there would be ways to contemplate negotiations. And by the way, Douglas, don't think for I think it's a relatively common misconception that World War II was fought over the Holocaust, over the genocide of the Jews. That's an arguable historical thesis. It's an arguable historical premise. In fact, some forces were supplying arms and supplies to both sides, not knowing what was going on. So the idea that World War II was fought for the genocide of the Jews is, I think, it's historically not entirely supportable. But again, that's a totally different discussion. All that to say, the analogy fails. Because if Putin is Hitler, he's Hitler plus nukes. And that means he's not Hitler. If you believe he is Hitler, it makes him exponentially more dangerous to the existence of the planet. Okay, Ukraine should just accept invasion, Georgia too. Israel should just lay down and let Palestinians invade. Well, there's again, cram-packed. There are people who believe that Israel has invaded Palestine and that Palestinians have the right to that land. So, I mean, these things, you can't just throw around analogies in immensely complex situations. And it does highlight the fact that when it comes to regional conflict, they are immensely complicated, which means that the solutions are going to have to be relatively complicated. Ukraine should just accept invasion. Russia invaded unprovoked. Jabberwolf, I think you might do good to get both sides of this explanation, even in Israel and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. No one is going to agree with your premise in the middle here. Israel should just lay down and let Palestinians invade. There are people with legitimate grievances who believe that Israel invaded Palestine, and how can the Palestinians just sit down and let Israel invade? And I would argue it's not a perfect analogy. They never are. The conflict in the east of Ukraine is slightly more complex than that comment in the super chat. And I'm not saying this to be glib or tongue-in-cheek. Thank you for the super chat. These discussions are complex and not simplified to Putin, Hitler, no negotiations, no appeasement, because no. All right. What do we have on the menu today? Jon Stewart's an idiot. Okay, period. Jon Stewart's an idiot. Can't remember my own notes here. He's a useful, he might be worse than a useful idiot. He's a destructive idiot. It's like I don't, the NPC programming thing that's a meme. It literally is like someone flipped a switch in Jon Stewart's brain, and he went from comedian, outspoken critic of the response to the support given to 9/11 heroes, to now promoting not temporary solutions to dealing with children that have what is diagnosed in the DSM-5 as gender dysphoria. Just like a switch went off in his head. He went from making sure the first responders in 9/11 got not just respect, not just the treatment they deserved, but what they were entitled to for their heroism. And flip a switch, the stuff you're going to hear coming out of his mouth is beyond verbal diarrhea. There's a story, which we're going to go over now because it definitely relates to what's coming to Canada in Belgium. A woman who survived a terrorist attack, I'll get the dates properly afterwards, but euthanized by the state because she could no longer live with her mental anguish. 23 years old. Someone suffering from mental illness, mental issues, euthanized by the state. Some say that when you can't consent to certain things, your consent is vitiated. Others might say the state euthanizing someone who seemingly by definition, but at the very least by the details, could not consent. Some might say that's not euthanasia, that's state-sanctioned murder. Then we got Jon Stewart. Oh, and then we got that terrible, terrible vaccine story, sorry, we don't know that it's a vaccine story, just politicians out pushing the jab while other stuff is going on. Okay, let's start with the euthanasia. Euthanasia. Here. This is going to be also, it's going to introduce a lot of people to a new, unless people know of the mental issue. Brussels ISIS bombing survivor. How do I get this to be? Okay, hold on. How do I get rid of the ad? Okay. Brussels ISIS bombing survivor, Shanti Decourt, 23, dead by euthanasia. October 8th. What's the date today? This story made the rounds last week. And some people thought it was Canada because if it's not Canada today, it's going to be Canada very soon. Dead by euthanasia. Cause of death, euthanasia. There's a word for that. A young woman who survived. Let me just make sure we're seeing the same thing here. Sorry, peeps. Okay, we're good. A young woman who survived an ISIS bombing chose euthanasia rather than live with the trauma, according to a report. Shanti Decourt was a 17-year-old student traveling with her classmates when ISIS terrorists detonated a bomb. The 2016 blast. Decourt was not physically injured in the attack, but endured years of panic attacks and depression afterward, the Mirror reported. She tried to end her life twice, 2018, 2020, posted regularly on social media about her struggles. And this is Shanti Decourt. It says, J'ai ri et pleuré. I laughed and cried jusqu'au tout dernier jour, just until the last day. J'ai aimé et j'ai eu le droit de ressentir. I loved and I had the right to feel things, to have emotions. Ce qu'était le véritable amour, that which was the true love. Les larmes de l'amour coulaient, the tears of love ran, doucement sur mon visage, gently on my face. Je vais maintenant, partir en paix. I'm now going to leave in peace. Sachez que vous me manquez déjà. Know that I miss you already. And then, by the way, here's another thing that she posted. With all the medications I take, I feel like a ghost that can't feel anything anymore. Maybe there were other solutions than medications. Maybe there were other solutions than medications. She wrote in one post, she chose to be euthanized earlier this year, which is legal in Belgium. She died on May 7 after 2 psychiatrists signed off on her request. And where prosecutors began an investigation into her case after this guy, a neurologist, and the CHU, Academic Clinical Hospital in Brussels, made complaints that the young woman's decision to end her life was made prematurely. Only by 60 to 70 years, depending on lifespan in Belgium. The case was closed after it found no violations had been made in the process for being euthanized. No violations had been made in the process. When you legalize criminality, it's no longer illegal. It's like, they didn't break any rules because we legalized euthanasia for the mentally ill. No, but we were just following the rules, and the rules were followed. Therefore, no crime because we legalized the crime. This is all in my humble opinion, people, just so you know. Not accusing anybody of formal crimes, although other people probably would. The euthanizing of an otherwise healthy young woman, some people would call that state-sanctioned murder. But what's even worse, in the story itself, in the details of the story, by her own admission, by her own statements, she's on medications, she's suffering from depression, she feels like a ghost. Some of you might not have ever heard of this condition. It comes from it can come from physical trauma to the brain, and it can also come from depression. It can come from psychosis, from schizophrenia. It is known as Cotard delusion or Cotard. We see this? Sometimes people who suffer tremendous loss, the loss of a child, the loss of a loved one, I won't say claim, they suffer from this. It triggers this condition. Cotard's delusion. Let me just shrink it so we can see the text a little better here. That's better. Also known as walking corpse syndrome or Cotard's syndrome, is a rare mental disorder in which the affected person holds the delusional belief that they are dead, do not exist, are putrefying, I guess that means, rotting, or have lost their blood or internal organs. Statistical analysis of a 100-patient cohort indicated that denial of self-existence is present in 45% of the cases of Cotard syndrome. In the other 55%, the patients presented with delusions of immortality. In 1880, Jules de Cotard described the condition as le délire de négation, the delirium of negation, a psychiatric syndrome of varied severity. A mild case characterized by despair and self-loathing, while severe cases characterized by intense delusions of negation or chronic psychiatric depression. Signs and symptoms. Delusions of negation are the central symptom of Cotard syndrome. The patient usually denies their own existence, the existence of body parts, yada, yada. I don't know if when she says she felt like a ghost, I can only, what's the word when you are, when you can feel someone else's pain? People, what's the word? I'm going to miss it. Empathetic. Through empathy, I can only imagine what she was feeling, which says she feels like a ghost. I can understand how someone who went through that psychological trauma, totally detached, suffering from depression, on medications, and then consents at the age of 23 to being euthanized by the state. There are some people who would say, by definition, someone who's mentally ill cannot enter into contracts, cannot agree to certain things, cannot consent to the ultimate decision. And this seems to be like one of those cases. And in Canada, for those of you who don't know, I got shocked and appalled when I found out what was going on in Canada as relates to medically assisted suicide. They call it medical assistance in death in Canada, MAIDS. In 2021, you all know this if you've been following for some period of time. In 2021, Canada euthanized 10,064 Canadians. Euthanized, put an end to the life, the state, through its procedures, 10,000 Canadians. It represented over 3% of the total death in Canada in 2021. In Canada. And that is before the proposed amendment is going to take effect, which was, what did they say? It was called sunset. There was a provision that excluded medical assistance in dying. It excluded the mentally ill from availability to medical assistance in dying for obvious reasons. Although it's arguable whether or not they're even allowing it right now. It excluded it for obvious reasons, but then, they had a debate in the Senate, in the government, and they said, well, we can't exclude the mentally ill from being able to kill themselves with the assistance of the state, because that would be discrimination. Our members of parliament sat around and proposed an amendment that says we're only going to exclude the mentally ill from the application of medical assistance in dying for 18 months or something from the enactment of the law. And so that provision has a sunset where it will no longer apply as of, I think, this year, next year. I don't know the exact date. They actually sat around and said, if we exclude the mentally ill from being able to request and obtain medical assistance in dying, that would be discriminatory. So this is coming to Canada. And now we've seen concrete evidence, a hard case, unless there's some radically different details that we don't know or misinformation, a 23-year-old physically healthy woman suffering from depression, taking a lot of medications, it would seem, euthanized. There's no limit. There's no limit. And it'll go from the mentally ill, and they say, well, we can't not allow mentally ill children to do this. Oh no, of course not. We wouldn't go there. That would be a bridge too far. And by the way, no thanks. This is global news. How poverty, not pain, is driving Canadians with disabilities to consider medically assisted death. This was one in Canada where a veterans helpline, this is not the story here, but we've talked about it before, recommended to a veteran calling in for help with PTSD, hey, you ever thought about killing yourself? You ever thought about medical assistance in dying? You got a bad case of PTSD. I've heard stories, which I can't, I won't get in there. When there's a financial incentive for the state to fast track, green light, and alleviate the burdens on the healthcare system, one can foresee the corruption relatively easily. And I just pulled up a couple of articles a while back. Yeah, this won't cost the healthcare system any money, guys. Don't worry. Euthanizing people won't cost the system anymore. It might actually save some money. What's that? The healthcare system's so overloaded we have to lock everyone down to flatten the curve? It would free up a lot of space, save the government a lot of money if we just let people start to kill themselves willy-nilly. And throw in there mental illness, which by definition affects one's ability to make certain decisions. Oh, but I'm sure they'll follow all the protocol. Hello, you've reached the Provincial Health Services Authority telephone line for medical assistance in dying. This is the automated recording Joni Cowie got when she called the government to see if she would be eligible for Medicare assistance in dying, known as MAID. It's an unmistakable message from the government. If you want to end your life, we'll help you. Good for global news. When it becomes unpopular, when it becomes popular to criticize the government, then they'll get on the bandwagon. When it's something so shocking and so egregious, 10,000 deaths through euthanasia in Canada in 2021, okay, maybe global news will start to cover it. Oh, Cowie certainly meets the medical. Okay, if you can call the number on the government website, they will provide doctors that will sign off for you, says the 52-year-old resident of Windsor, Ontario. They can have me dead in 90 days. That's what I was told. One woman was euthanized in Canada because she had a severe chemical sensitivity, also known as an allergy, and couldn't find housing to accommodate her. MAID. Enacted in 26, MAID legislation required that death be reasonably foreseeable. However, based on subsequent legal challenges, the legislation was ruled unconstitutional and the rules were changed. Starting last year, anyone who has a serious and incurable illness, disease, or disability that is irreversible with enduring and intolerable suffering became eligible. But critics say the government's quick expansion of MAID and insistence that it's a compassionate thing to do misses an important factor. A massive number of Canadians with disabilities like Cowie are trapped in an excruciating cycle of poverty. This goes on. I'll clip it. It's stating the obvious for anybody who didn't already know it. It's the obvious. And we're gonna see mercy killings. It's the compassionate thing to do. There are people out there. Hold on, sorry. There are people out there who are downtrodden, and I've heard concrete stories of people like, I need other help. Why are you pressuring this on me? Hold on, I can't do this. Pin the comment. Forgot to pin the message. There we go. Yes, Mark says, please pin the Rumble. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. Message pinned. Okay, done. Because we're going to move over there in a few seconds now. Here's the link to Rumble. Oh, you know what? Oh, yeah, there we've been demonetized. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. It's only going to affect visibility, viewability. Global news is starting to call out the government on this god-awful MAIDs policy. But, big tech doesn't want you. Anyhow, whatever. Set that aside. That's what's going on. Belgium, Canada. And we're seeing now how what people said was hyperbolic fear-mongering becomes reality, and then the Overton window shifts a little bit, and now it becomes a justification. Well, it's her decision. It's her decision. So who are we to interfere? So let's facilitate. The maids who couldn't find an apartment. Yep, Bucklebrush Jones. That was it. She couldn't find an apartment, and chose it, and was granted it for chemical sensitivity, aka allergy. How do they know this raft of medications did not facilitate her decline over time? It sounds like they helped separate her from herself. I saw a couple of chats, which I brought up here, talks about the risks of some of these medications. Mind fog, mind numbing. Psychiatric medications numb if you aren't chemically imbalanced. Yeah, it's atrocious. Better days are ahead or not. I choose to say yes, but you have to get through the days and you have to get through the people who do, not everyone is as people are distracted with their own lives, and I say that in a non-judgmental way. People are distracted with their own lives. Life is hard enough as it is, and it's not of interest to you until it hits closer to home. Okay, there was one super chat which I want to try to get before moving over, and I've got to do the ad read of the day. You all noticed the paid. I hope you saw the paid promotional thing because I want to make sure that I put it in there. Customization. Hold on. I'm absolutely neurotic about being overtly ethical. This stream contains paid promotion product placement. Yes, I put it in and I clipped it. I highlighted it so I can do it. That was it. It was this one here. James Knoll. Viva in the rush hour. I can dig it. Just need you on AM radio next. I could do radio. I don't think anybody listens to radio, but what do I know? All right, before we move over to Rumble, I'm going to thank my sponsors for having the cojones, the audacity, the courage to sponsor a channel like mine, which I don't think should take much courage. But in today's day and age, speaking truth is a revolutionary act, and sponsoring the channel of someone who I think I speak the truth. And if someone doesn't think I speak the truth, let me know, and I will assess. Home lock. Oh geez, I just screwed it up. Am I an absolute buffoon? HomeTitleLock.com. What the heck's my problem? HomeTitleLock.com. For anyone in the States, this is only for the States because I don't think it operates up in Canada. Something I did not know about coming down here. In Canada, there's a lot of there's fraud, identity theft, yada yada. In the States, apparently home theft. It's like they go and pull up your deed, your quitclaim deed from the local registry. Forge a document and borrow money against your house. That's the type of fraud. I didn't know that it existed here. I called up my insurance company to make sure that this is a legit form of fraud that I have to worry about and protect against. And my insurance guy said, it is, and you should. And I go with HomeTitleLock.com. I literally use it. So personally use it. HomeTitleLock.com. It's like $20 a month. And what happens, the way it works, if someone tries to pull your deed to fraudulently borrow against the equity that you might have in your property, once the deed is pulled, you'll get a notification and they'll freeze the account of sorts so that nobody can borrow money against it. So for $20 a month, I think it's certainly, hold on, I'm going to go to the website, HomeTitleLock.com/Viva. And I'm going to bring it up so you can see my beautiful face on Home Title Lock. And it's a real type of fraud. Some people say, there's other ways to protect against it, but for the $20 a month for what is arguably, but not arguably, most people's biggest asset, to make sure that nobody borrows against it, and then you wake up one day with someone saying, hey, you borrowed $40,000 or $50,000 against your house, pay up. It's good. Thus far, I have not had to use it, which is exactly the way I intend to keep it. So that's it. Home Title Lock /Viva, $20 a month, worth it. Now we shall. By the way, everybody, I'm wearing a black shirt. You cannot see how much I'm sweating. I am sweat. I can feel it dripping down. I don't know why. I should probably just turn. That picture is 5 years. If that picture's not 5 years old, that picture. Hold on. Let's bring that back up. That picture is. I know when I took that picture. I took that picture when I ran for office. Hold on. Let me bring that up. I took this picture when I ran for office for the radical far-right People's Party of Canada. So that picture is from September, give or take 2021. Oh yeah, what a difference a year makes. Oh yeah, that's actually it's funny. That's the gauge. That picture was from, no, it wasn't September. It was probably August when I started running. When the campaign started in August, I took that picture by my house. My wife snapped it with an iPhone, and that became the campaign picture. Okay, parentheses closed. And we'll bring that out. All right, and then there was a super chat that came in at the same time, which I want to bring up. Where did it go? What in the what? Wait, it's right here. Okay. It's been over 6 months since we've had It's been over 6 months since we've had troops in Ukraine. When will Congress declare war? I wouldn't want to be a politician at this point in time, but I look younger with the hair. I feel younger with the hair as well. Okay, that's it. We're winding it up on YouTube, everybody. You got the link. Let us go